How to be a successful artist in the NFT world. Today, we're speaking with Lucas Swick, who's a generative artist in the NFT world. Welcome to Goats in the Metaverse, the only weekly show that goes deep into the world of collectibles and NFTs. I'm your host, Stanley Meytin, riding solo today. Super excited about this show. I miss my co-host, who had a baby a few days ago. So congratulations to Yossi and this whole entire family. We have a new addition to the family. I am super excited for him. Gonna miss him. I'm all alone today, but I promise you we're gonna have a great time. And I'm looking forward to speaking with Lucas. Before we do that, let's check out our favorite part of the show, the Goat Vault. I got no echo today. Yossi's not here. For those of you that don't know the Goat Vault, Yossi and I invested our own money. We promised to put in $10,000 of our own money. Year to date, we put in a little over $3,000. Our Goat Vault is worth about $65,000 year to date. And you could win one of the NFTs in our Goat Vault. Once we reach 5,000 subscribers, we open up the vault and start giving them away to our audience. All you need to do is be one of the subscribers to follow us to subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Once we get to 5,000, we open it up. Another successful week. As you can see, we went up about 20 grand from last week. 20,000 US dollars from last week. Another successful week of NFTs. As you can see on the screen, here are some of the winners. Another big week from Cool Cats, who continue to impress, continue to move up. And, let's get to 5,000 subscriber, folks, because once we get there, we're opening up the Go Vault and giving it away. Let's check out what happened in the wonderful world of NFTs in this past week. A lot has happened. NFTs continue to rip and be on the rise. In the last 7 days, we have some new additions to the top 3. Axie Infinity continues to be number 1, or in the top 3. But as you can see from our chart here, we have 2 new players. Crypto Toads, who we talked about in length, continue to go up. I believe they doubled. At some point, they were about 6 Ethereum. They went up to 12 Ethereum, and I believe they actually hit about 15 Ethereum this week. Another project that continues to rise and has like a lot of influencers, a lot of OGs, a lot of people in the space continue to buy them, and the price continues to go up. And a lot of the conversation is because it does resemble CryptoPunks. I don't necessarily know if I agree with that statement. It is pixelated art. It kind of does remind me a little bit of it, but I don't know if that's the only reason for it to go up. It did come down to reality a little bit. I believe it came down to about 10 Ethereum. But look, it's a top 3 project. They did $55 million in sales in the last week. That's a real number. A new addition to the top 3 is Mechaverse, which is a project launched by 888. Probably one of the most anticipated drops to happen in the last few months. The way they set up the drop, which I thought was really, really smart, it was a lottery system. You had to register your MetaMask wallet. You had an opportunity to buy 2 once you registered. There was over 200,000 people in their Discord during the time of registration. And people were saying there's about 200,000 people that registered for the lottery. They only gave away 8,888. The lucky winners who were able to get permission to and won the lottery were able to minted it at 0.2. I believe it shot up to about 4 or 5 Ethereum. I'm not 100% sure exactly where it is. But if you were one of the lucky winners who got it at 0.2 and able to flip this thing for 3, 4, 5 Ethereum, you were obviously quite successful in making a very quick flip, or potentially holding this project for the long term. Mechaverse, I do think the art is cool. We know that 888 is a legitimate player in the space. I like the project. I tried to win it, win the lottery. Was not able to mint. Was a little bit disappointed about that, but we'll keep tracking that project and see where it goes. The art reminds me of Transformers a little bit, which is a pretty cool look. Who else is on our top 5 that's making moves? Cool Cats is not in the top 5, but they continue to go up, as I talked about in the Goat Bowl. They hit about 15 Ethereum floor, and they continue to kind of hang around that number. They dropped to about 12, but they continue to fluctuate between 12 and 15 Ethereum. And it looks like it's going to be one of these projects that we need to continue to pay attention to. I believe that Cool Cats is a top 3 to 5 project and can continue to make noise as we continue to go. And Punk's Comics made a big announcement that you have an opportunity to mint planets. And if you mint all 9 planets, that you were able to mint all 9 planets, they're doing a snapshot and you get something special. Also, if you own a Punk's comic, you own a DAO, and a meta hero, you get a free Earth, which I believe the value is about 3 Ethereum. Punk's Comics is the most innovative group out there. They continue to, it's game theory, they continue to innovate, they continue to build their game, and I personally believe that that's somebody long-term going to continue to make noise. They're just being very, very creative with how, I mean, they're building a comic book, right? They're building a game, they're building a comic book, and they're getting everybody involved. And they're continuing to make noise. They're continuing to add additions. They're continuing to, you have to continue to buy in and buy these additional pieces. But they're continuing to reward their users and the owners of the players in the game, which is us who continue to buy meta heroes and planets. They're not patient over there. They're making noise. So I was excited about the drop. I personally purchased a few planets. I was not able to purchase all 9, but that is one of my goals. So another quiet week in the NFT space, like we always talk about. I'm excited to bring on our guest, Lucas, who's an artist who launched his own NFT project. I'm excited to talk to him just for the reason of we actually never had an artist come on and talk about it from his point of view. And I have a lot of questions for him. So without further ado, let's bring on, there we go. Lucas, welcome to the show.
Hello.
My friend.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm doing great over here. It's a Friday, another great week. Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing terrific. I'm riding solo today, so this is a little bit out of my element. I usually have a co-host. We could talk a little bit. I feel like I'm a little bit talking to myself, but you know what? I got Lucas here. I got
you.
Audience here. We're here. We're here to chat NFTs.
Yeah. What else do you need? Yeah.
What else do you need, right? I mean, my first question to you is, how the heck did you find yourself in this space?
Oh my gosh, what a crazy journey this has been. I'm a software engineer by day, and I've been making generative art for years and years. 5 years ago, I decided to take it more seriously, and I tried so hard to make it as an artist, and it was challenging. I had gallery shows, I had some installations, super successful from just the work and the reaction, but making that jump out of the software engineering to something with a little bit more risk just wasn't for me. And then fast forward to, I think for me, NFTs came on my radar about 6 months ago, maybe a little longer, probably around February or March. I was just kind of watching it. And then the generative art NFT thing started to happen. And fun fact about me, if you go to generativeartist.com, that's me. I am a generative artist, and in 2015 that domain was available, so hooray. And I just started watching this space, and it's like, oh, there's some like cool stuff happening, and I love how supportive the community is being towards artists. So come around April, August, I decided to put some work up. So I dug up a series from my hard drive that I never published. It was just this processing app that made art, and I've always liked it, but I never just did anything with it. Just kind of sat there. I was like, let's just see what happens. Let's see what happens if we put up 8 pieces on OpenSea at 0.1 ETH each. And honestly, Stan, like, I kind of had like I expected to sell 2 or 3. Okay, that's kind of typical. Like I'll sell like 20 to 30% of my pieces at a show or whatever. Went to bed, woke up the next morning, and they were all gone. And I'm like, whoa, that's cool. So I sort of built on that series. I did a couple more drops of the same series, like sort of, or the same collection, I should say. I ended up doing 4 series, and they all sold. And it was just like crazy exciting. Like my wife and I were just like, I've never seen anything like this. I sold more art like in the past 5 days of August than I have my entire career. It's just like, this is unbelievable.
That's awesome. So let's back up a little bit. On the first time you put them on OpenSea, how many pieces did you put in? How many?
I put 8 pieces up.
Okay, so first 8 pieces go up. You go to sleep. You're like, maybe one is gonna sell.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have like a marketing team. I've had the domain, but I don't really. Like I post on Twitter, I post on Instagram, and my friends like it. That's the thing. It's always been hard for me to break out of the friend zone. So suddenly being in this marketplace where there's lots of people that like the work and are like there with the intention of buying work, it's just a game changer for me. Like I have so many new friends. Yeah, it's really, really cool.
So you sell 8, you and your wife are high-fiving, big smiles on your faces, and you're like, whoa, right? Like we're successful artists, right? Like we're
yeah, it felt really good. It felt like, I mean, we always say if you're making art, you're a successful artist. But it's nice to be recognized by the community, right? Like that goes a long ways with me. And that's some of the magic that'll like keep encouraging me. Like, that feedback has just been so remarkable.
So what made you, and what was the kind of thought process behind, let's start putting up, the next series and the next series and things like that?
Yeah. So the first 4 drops, like all in that collection, Form and Decay. That was just kind of a test, I guess. It was just like, I have no idea what I'm doing here, but it seems like people like it. And if I'm selling out, I should probably drop more. And yeah, just seeing them all sell out was really remarkable. And shortly after that time is when I got in touch with Adam, who goes by Notion from GenArt, which is a new platform. And they're DAO based. And one of the things they offer is if you're a member, if you own a membership token, then you can mint the drops at any time. So you can avoid the gas wars, which I think is really, really important for like sustainability moving forward. So we started talking, probably like late August, early September. And I had the opportunity to do a drop that was released on Wednesday, and it's been fantastic. It's actually like a revisitation of Bloom, which is like one of the first like serious generative art pieces that I did. And the original version, it was C++, it was 2015. Like, the JavaScript performance was not where we are today. So I couldn't do it in a browser. But yeah, we've come a long ways from a technology perspective. And yeah, so this is the page that's on my site right now. Side note, the site is like low-key generative as well, in that if you were to refresh, you would get some different images every time. And yeah, the drop happened on Wednesday, and it's just been an incredible 6 weeks. Like, holy cow. I really just can't express my gratitude to the community, to everyone who's, minted, to everyone who's shared, to all of the people who have like said good things. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, really.
First of all, congratulations. I love the story. I love the journey. And I think, now, like, I love how we talk about NFTs. Like, if you're in for 6 months, you're in for like, it's like, you got gray hair, like it's like, no hair, it's like we've been in for so long, right? But like, it's like, you've been in for 6 months. You're an established artist, right? You're in this space, but let's take a step back. You said you've been doing this 2015 C++. You're doing this. You're not, maybe one day somebody will buy it. Maybe one day somebody will understand it, right? Forget about that they're gonna buy it, right? You're doing this because it brings you joy, right? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
absolutely.
You're not like, one day I'm gonna become, a billionaire because people are gonna be like, this is the coolest thing in the world. Talk to me about that.
So true.
You're true. You're Elon Musk, right? Like you're frontier. You're seeing things a lot clearer than other people are.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's really cool to see the progression of generative art become more mainstream. Like in 2015, I had to explain to everyone what I was doing. There's oh my gosh, there was one person, I was talking to this individual for like half an hour about generative art, and there was just a look of confusion on her face. And she's just like, I just don't understand. And I'm kind of used to that, like explaining that like computers can make art, and I kind of like program them beforehand, and then they just, pick different numbers or use different data sets, and like different art comes out. Like I've had that conversation a few times.
So let's take a step back. What is generative art? There's somebody out there that's like, generative art? What is that? Let's break that down into the most simplistic terms. What is generative?
So generative art is when an artist writes code that creates images. That's really all that there is to it. It's not like you're not working in Photoshop. You're not sitting in front of a canvas with a set of paints. You're like sitting in front of a code editor and you're writing code. And the beauty of it is, computers are really good at doing things over and over again. So there's something unique about generative art in that you can write an algorithm that consumes different inputs or picks different random numbers and makes different art, right? It can be different every time. So that's kind of the nutshell of what a generative artist does on a like kind of like day-to-day basis. What the medium is capable of, I think we're just at like we're just scratching the surface of what we can do. I think, like I mentioned, as we're starting to see more and more people become familiar with the term generative art, and like huge shout out to Art Blocks for really just like pushing the generative art artists and medium forward and just like getting it in front of people and getting people excited about it. It's been really fun to watch their progression, and some of the work coming out of there is just mind blowing, So yeah, I guess that's kind of generative art in a nutshell.
So I get it, but I'm going to play devil's advocate here a little bit. Like, you're looking at, is your canvas numbers, right? Is that, are you kind of actually picking the colors, or you're kind of designing the kind of the structures of it, right? Like, is it you're a great artist or you're great at coding? Like, or is there a kind of a fine medium?
So this is one of the cool things. Like, there's kind of a spectrum, and you need to have, I think, to be a successful generative artist, you need to have some knowledge of both domains, right? You need to like know a little bit about coding, and there are, things like processing that are pretty approachable. I always recommend people, if you're interested in getting into creating your own generative art, download processing, watch the coding train videos. They're so good. And the documentation on processing is fantastic. Processing is very powerful, and it's pretty easy to get into, but you need to have some skills there. You can learn those skills, but you need to have those. You also need to have some sense of an aesthetic. You don't want to just kind of put out noise, right? Like, you don't just want to like choose random colors and draw random shapes.
Right.
Noisy. Maybe some people are into that. I don't know. But yeah, it's an interesting mix, right? Because like engineering tends to be left brain, right? You're like very logical about things, but then art is very right brain. You're very like kind of intuitive, and maybe things don't have such a defined shape. So it's fun to meet other generative artists and be like, oh yeah, I connect with you, because like we're kind of in this space where we have to use like two pretty disparate skill sets in order to be successful.
Right. But I mean, look, I think the beauty of it is, right, you have a very unique skill set. Obviously there's other people. And by the way, I think the art is beautiful. It talks to me.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Thank you.
But look, at the same time, you like, I remember, I think it was 8th grade or 9th grade. I had a teacher, I forgot his name, but I'm the worst artist in the world. Like I have like I have like zero, like I can't do stick figures. But I used to sit there and I used to like, do abstract like lines and stuff like that. And he'll be like, wow, like your artwork is so meaningful. I'm like, is this guy serious? Like my art, like I'm just like literally just, but like, but when I look at a piece of art, I look at your piece of art, I'm like, hey, this talks to me, right? Like I totally understand it. I connect with it. But I look at it from like, there's a lot of thought that went behind it, right? And I think now in this day and age, you're finally getting those, those kudos that it's like branding is art to me, right? Like if somebody comes up with a really cool brand, like I appreciate a really cool brand and how it's positioned because there's a thought process that went behind it, right? It's not just like throw a bunch of shit against the wall and see what sticks, right? So the point that I'm trying to make is now I think finally people are starting to give you the recognition because it's not just on a canvas, right? It's not just a really cool hand drawing. There's a lot that goes behind it. So here's my question to you, right? Like,
okay, go ahead. Yeah.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just the way you're describing your drawings, I do that too. I love just like doodling little patterns. Sounds like you should learn some processing. So
maybe that side of the brain, maybe the other side of learning processing is not gonna happen. I there's like not enough. It's all that other side of the brain. But let's talk about Well, I have so many questions. But first question, that first series, 0.1 ETH, what is it worth today? Any idea?
Oh, gosh, I'm not sure. I know that the very first piece is listed at 40 ETH. And honestly, I'd love to see that go. The individual that like he bought the first piece, and that was just so cool. It was so awesome to see. So I'd love to see him rewarded for like believing in me when
he will.
He knew who I was.
He will, right? I mean, it might not happen today, it might not happen tomorrow, but it's going to happen, right? There's like that's kind of when I talk to my friends about NFTs, and they're like, oh, this is all going to fall apart, right? This is all going to, and I'm like, well, there's a lot of artists out there, right? There's a lot of like once you start buying, like to me, it's like once you start buying NFTs, it's like a little bit of a drug, right? You kind of continue. You can't just buy one, right? Like once you break that barrier, you continue to buy it, and you're like looking at it as far as wow, this is cool, right? So it's just like a hobby of, doing other things that people do, and they collect, whether it's coins or sports cards or whatever it is. Once you get into it and you start understanding the processing behind it, you kind of become addicted. And obviously there's a monetary component behind it that makes it a lot more addicting, right? Like you could actually make money on this. There is a monetary value, and you see that from a supply demand perspective. So
Yeah.
like, let's take a step back. I mean, I think the approach is, let's talk about it. Let's say somebody's watching the show that's an artist. They haven't sold. Somebody reached out to me on Instagram the other day, and they're like, "I've never sold a piece of art." I said, "No problem. I'll buy your piece of art." Like, what should somebody do? Like, where should they start?
I think identifying, like, I think two things. Well, the first two things is identifying, like, what do you want to be conveying with your art? Is it a feeling? Is it a story? Is it an emotion? Is it an aesthetic that you think is cool? And then two, figure out how you're different, because there is, like, as the excitement around NFT grows, there's going to be a point where generative art becomes maybe like more commoditized. So how do you have to be thinking, like, how am I going to stand out from that crowd? And then I think, like, honestly, really, it took me 5 years of just doing the work and putting my hours in before this opportunity kind of presented itself. And I just look at that as, like, I was just getting ready for the opportunity. So even if that individual hasn't sold anything today, like, just keep going, because the marketplace is changing so rapidly, and people are really open to new ideas right now. I think just, like, even outside the NFT space, but just, like, looking at the world, I think there's like people want to try a lot of new things right now. So there's going to be opportunities a year, 2 years, 5 years from now that we can't even imagine. So just keep working, be consistent, believe in yourself, know what you're trying to communicate, and know how you're different.
I love that. I mean, I think you hit on a bunch of different, like, what's your story, right? I mean, Yossi, who's my co-host, who's not here today, I think one of the first conversations we had was like, the people that are going to, about when it came to NFTs, the people who are going to be successful are the ones that are going to have a story. And that story is going to need to connect to people. And once those connections happen, right, more and more people are going to continue to happen. And I think that's, looking at it from a marketing business perspective, right, that's any brand out there, right? Like, what's your story? Why are you different? Why am I buying your product? Essentially, that's what, like, NFTs are, right? There is a product component to it. Yes, it's art, right? But you can't really hang it on your wall, right? Yeah, well, you can, like, it's, but I think it's more of like, it's a status symbol, it's a culture symbol, right? This is what it's just like buying a sweater, right? Or a hoodie. You're like, I think this hoodie is cool, and I'm going to pay $300 for it or $30 for it. And, it's similar component to that, right? Where you're like, hey, I'm going to go buy a piece of generative art for $6 million, right? Like, people just have a lot bigger bank accounts that they can roll with, and they're like, it speaks to me. I'm willing to make that investment. But I think that the story component,
absolutely. Yeah, it's been really wonderful being on the GenArt Discord, because people can ask me questions directly and I can answer them. People are, like, posting, their mints. I'm like, oh, I really like, the way that this particular element of that piece worked out. But it's also cool to see people, because, like, I've been thinking about this project for a long time, and I think I have a pretty deep understanding of it. But it's cool to see other people getting that. Like, someone actually responded on the Discord today and, like, just totally explained the whole purpose and the story of the project, which is there's particles moving around and they have intention. They want to go certain ways, but then there's these forces pushing against them. And the whole series is just like the story of those two forces interplaying. And it's just a big metaphor for life. It's like, yeah, I want to go that way, but the the job is pushing me this way,
Yeah.
so it's cool to see people like getting it in a way that I like, unless I'm doing like one-on-one conversations with people, that just doesn't happen. So it's kind of this like scale of my message in the story, which is just like, what an incredible opportunity.
And let's talk. I mean, I know you touched on GenArt. Like, what is GenArt, right? It's a community.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a platform and a community. Um, it's relatively young. I am the fourth artist who's had a drop. The first two, I guess, let me take a step back. You buy into GenArt. I think membership is capped at 5,100. It was originally a membership was listed at 0.1 ETH, but now it's about 2-ish. There's been 2 free drops. So as a member, you're entitled to 2 free drops, which are the first 2 that came out last week. An incredible artist. You may have seen her work on Foundation. Her name's Laya. She's 14 and she's just brilliant. Like, you listen to her and you're like, oh my God, this is not fair. Like, I was a joker when I was 20 and you're 14 and you're such a pro. Like, oh my gosh, she's going to do, I mean, she's already doing well, but her future is just so bright. So she was the third drop and then I was the fourth. And the way it works is, as a member, the whole organization is set up as a DAO. So people have the opportunity to vote. And I think the first vote is happening right now, which is, do we want to like announce the artist before the drop, or do we want to like build suspense until drop day and then just, kind of release it? And the community gets to say, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that's GenArt. Check out the Discord, check out gen.art. That's the URL. And on social, they're like like DOT art or something to that nature. But yeah, it's super cool. I'm really excited to see where they go. The community is very engaged and respectful. Holy smokes, it's really refreshing. It's really nice.
I love it. And another big buzzword, I think, is community, right? I mean, community is what continues to grow the NFT world. And I personally have never seen so many people that go out of their way to help others and educate others about, what is an NFT, right? What is like your, what is GenArt? Like, what is like, and I think the education component is the biggest component, right? Because more people, once they actually understand, one, the technology, the blockchain technology, how powerful it is, right? NFTs, what does the future of NFTs look like? What is generative art? What is like the amount of things that are going to happen using NFTs in the future? I was at a watch store yesterday, in a very high-end watch store, randomly meeting somebody, and I was talking to them about. They asked what NFTs were, and I said, well, I'm going to make a prediction that in the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years, however it's going to take to get there, every very expensive watch is going to come with an NFT. And that NFT is going to be trackable. Instead of having a passport to authenticate that this watch is authentic and real, you're going to have an NFT. And then once you sell your NFT, you're going to, that once you sell your watch, your NFT is going to get passed on, get sold with it, and yada, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. And she was like, wow, that's amazing. We do 45,000 watches a year. And whenever somebody loses their passport, they have to pay $1,000, and we have to send a letter to Switzerland, and they have to go through the catalog to find the matching serial number to the. I was like, yeah, that's exactly why it's gonna be under blockchain technology.
Yeah.
It might take a little while to get there because the mindset of this luxury good and this whole process, it's gonna take time, but eventually it's gonna get there, right? So once it kind of turns into a household name of, we don't even know if it's going to be NFT, right? Like, Like it might be something else, right? But for now, it's gonna be an NFT. Like that's what's gonna happen. So then the question becomes, we're here in the very first inning, at least under my calculation, of what does that mean for an artist who got started early? What does that mean for somebody like you? What is
it? It's crazy. It's like a giant springboard into the future where all these things, when I get together with other digital artists and we just start brainstorming ideas, it's like, we're like, reality is here and our ideas are, we're thinking about the future here. We just went like, boop, there's a big first step towards realizing some of those ideas. Like as an artist, I think about, man, I want to like collaborate with a musician and do a vinyl drop where every cover is a unique piece of work. I want to work with an author and do the same thing for books. I want people to like go into, I don't know. I think about the radio stations. Like I use radio stations as an analogy a fair bit, where imagine you're driving on a road trip. You're just kind of like flipping through the radio stations, don't really know like what to listen to. And you're like, no, that one's okay. No. And then you go back to the one that's okay because it's the best one that's there, but it might not be what you actually wanted to listen to, right? I feel like many people end up buying art in the same way. Like they're just like, oh, we need a piece for a wall and I'm at IKEA, so we get X. I was like that, like, I like when that happens. But like what happens if they could say like, oh, but I really like the color cyan. And then it's like, oh, well, let's bring some cyan into a generative piece, or let's bring in something else that's personal to you as an individual. So this piece, like that connection that you're talking about, like it's not just like based in adoration, right? It's like based in something with deeper meaning. And then every time you look at that, you're going to remember that. Every time you like talk about it, you'd be like, oh yeah, like I chose this piece because XYZ. And there's this whole story that like those stories are going to become so much more engaging and deep over time. That's what I'm most excited about.
That's great. It's very interesting. I actually never would have thought of that, but you're 100% right. Like I'm thinking about, the piece that's hanging on my wall right now. And I love it, right? But I saw it like I was looking for that. Like I moved into my house and I'm like, I need artwork, right? And I saw the piece and I fell in love with it and I bought it and I have it. But if I'm actually saying, like the other way of looking, like I want to design my environment, right? Like I want to be able to live in an environment that speaks to me. Now I can't necessarily explain it in words, right? I can't, I'm not an artist, I can't draw it. But I might be able to hire, a generative artist and give them, they might be able to ask the right questions out of me, right? Colors, shapes, sizes, whatever. I don't know. I didn't read processing yet. But then out of that, you come out a piece of art that's actually going to speak to me, right? I mean, kind of going back to like anything else where it's like, how do we find out we're really in love with somebody, right? Like we're on the first date, we ask a lot of questions, right? It's kind of that same mindset of like, now you can actually create art that's going to speak to people. I think that's a very, very interesting outlet.
Yeah. And I should say, like, it's great. Like I'm like totally happy when people find a piece of art that they love and are then able to acquire it. Like it doesn't need to be put into words. It doesn't need to have a story. Like that is so awesome that we live in a world where that happens at all. This is like, I imagine that existing and these two things. It's not like one's going to replace the other, but it'll just be another way for people to connect with like both the art, but then also kind of connecting with like what inside them like connects them to that art, right? So it's both an inward and an outward connection.
Right. And I think the one thing that NFTs have really helped us, how do we communicate, right? We're now able to communicate with images, right? With art, right? But like when we're like, I come from the sports car world and that's how I got into NFTs. And I collected sports cars as a kid. I've been collecting for the last few years. Like I relate to it, right? I'm a big sports fan. I see Patrick Mahomes, and I'm like, I love this guy. I think he's going to be one of the best guys of all time. I'm almost investing in his future, right? But at the same time, like on that sports card, the way it's presented, it speaks to me, right? If they just kind of, took a passport photo of Patrick Mahomes, I'd be like, I'm not going to pay $5,000 for this, right? There's a thought process that goes behind it, and there's a story of, there's only so many of them in the world, et cetera, et cetera. So now you're just able to do it on such a bigger scale. You just, from a creativity standpoint of view, there's so much more you can do, right? Now you have a utility component of it, which we haven't even talked about it. But as an artist, you might be able to sell a piece of artwork, right? Which if somebody buys your art, you might be able to, go customize a piece for their own liking for their wall in their house, right? Or something along those lines, which is, like Tom Sachs is doing it with his project, where you're actually getting a physical rocket that, and you're getting an NFT of it. Like, in those types of things, I think are just scratching the surface.
There's a lot of like playing and exploring in the NFT world that's really exciting. Like we're just so young into it. It's going to be a wild ride over the next few years to see what shakes out and like what works and what falls by the wayside. But yeah, how cool to see so many people invested in art. Like this is a big movement. So it's just super exciting.
So I'm going to put you on the spot. What happens? Give me a 3, 5, 10-year outlook. Like what's going to happen with what's going to happen with my first question is, with generative art, NFTs in general.
Okay, generative art, I think, is really going to change the way that we purchase goods. I think people are going to start to expect and demand a level of personalization, just like across the board, from their, like, this is way out there, but like from their toothpaste, like I want like particular flavors in my toothpaste, to furniture. Like imagine furniture where it's like a collaboration between a furniture designer and an artist, just like more things like that. That just, like, let's take that level of excitement and, keep bringing that forward. So I think we're going to see more art tied with more personalization. I think also we'll start to see some like really interesting, I think we're going to see more of those stories coming out. I think generative art right now is, a lot of it is really pretty. There's a lot of really pretty work out there. But over time, it's going to become more tied to a story. Like imagine an indigenous poet pairing with a generative artist to make work together. Like, what does that look like? I literally have no idea, but we're going to do it, and it's going to be awesome. And I can't wait to see what happens when you take these, people who are like left brain, right brain, generative art, and then pairing them with folks like who have like crazy, interesting, and sometimes heartbreaking stories. I don't know, but we're gonna see like some really emotional work come out of the space, and I'm just so curious to see like, what does emotion at scale mean? That's really exciting to explore to me. So yeah, I don't know where on the timeline that fits. That's kind of a lofty goal.
But that is interesting, right? Like you could take, I don't know, the refugees from Afghanistan, right? And have them tell their stories and use that as an expression through generative art. And what does that look like? There's so many different possibilities. Or, somebody's going to space, right? How do you then go capture those moments and tell those moments? Because I think that's where we're living now, right? We're living in the world of experiences, and experiences are probably what's most important to us, right, in life. But now we're kind of, and I think COVID has a lot to do with this, right? We're kind of, for the last year and a half, 2 years, there's very little experiences that we're able to have, at least, a lot of us have not come out of our house or whatever it is, but now you're able to kind of, to kind of use those as expressions through art. I'm curious to see how that play out. So
me too. Yeah.
We're like, wow, this is it's happening. It's all happening. So
It's happening fast.
Who are some artists that you are, you adore, love, follow, or just big fan of that are creative generative in that space right now?
Yeah. Oh my gosh! So one of the super interesting things about generative art is its origins. I think it started in the late '60s, like Vera Molnar sitting in front of a computer without a display and writing an algorithm that would run on the plotter overnight. And that is just so mind-blowing to me that someone would look at this thing. It's like looking at it's like looking at, what's a good example? I don't know. Something that's very a spreadsheet. It's like looking at a spreadsheet and be like, oh, this can be art, and the tooling just being so much less user-friendly than what we have now. So she's an icon. Fast forward to late 90s, early 2000s. Casey Reus, Jonathan McCabe is just brilliant. Love the work that Matt Delorier is pushing out these days. Meridian is just beautiful. I love his work because, and I try to do this in my work sometimes as well. Trying to make something that doesn't look computer generated. Meridian looks like someone just sat and just drew these beautiful landscapes. It's just riveting. But there's a lot of names coming out. It's pretty exciting.
Cool. And what's next for Lucas?
Great question. So this was a big week. A lot of work went up to this week. So this weekend I just need to practice some self-care, take some naps, pet the cat sort of thing. But I am starting my next series. And I'm pretty hush-hush about it. I'm going to use the same playbook that GenArt did with Bloom, where it's keep it real quiet up until just keep it quiet, keep it tight. But if you like Vera's work and you like my work, you will probably like this next series.
So you're giving us a little insight. There's more coming.
That's just a little
bit. And are you launching it through GenArt as well, or no?
Actually, this one, I'm excited. I haven't had a chance to touch base with Adam about future plans with GenArt. I know they have artists lined up, I think, through the end of the year. So this will be actually on another platform. But I love the GenArt community. I'm thinking about my next project with them, and hopefully we can do something early next year, because it's just been such a joy. They are such pros, and the community is so good. I feel really honored to be a part of it.
Cool. And look at that, questions. Should we keep an eye out on your Twitter for more details on your next drop?
Definitely.
Yep. Is that where we could find it? And you can see it right there. And one more question from our audience. What's your favorite NFT avatar project?
Oh my gosh, this is so funny. I feel like a bad NFT practitioner because I don't know that I have one.
You don't have one? No, none.
I don't have none. Yeah. Wow. I guess.
CryptoPunks?
Pretty disappointing. No? CryptoPunks is cool. There's a lot of cool work out there. For sure. I have been 100% focused on the drop. My wife will attest. I was not present in any other capacity.
Let me ask you another question. Do you, in your mind as a generative artist, there's like, what do you look at the avatar projects? Do you not give them, the street cred of being art, or do you see it as almost different verticals of, we're going to have avatar projects, we're going to have generative art projects, and then, we're going to have utility-based NFTs. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, totally. It's another vertical. So there's like, like you're saying, generative art, profile pics. There's going to be all kinds of new verticals. Like I'm really excited to see what happens when, and maybe this is happening already. I don't know, but like what happens with engineers who are doing 3D printing, like what happens then? I don't know. Is that going to be a new vertical that pops up, like physical sculpted 3D prints, NFTs? I don't know. But there's a lot of space for people to explore. And yeah, the profile pics, it's cool to just, profile pics were pretty essential to, it was like a stepping stone into like a deeper art world. It's just like, it's really accessible. There's so much variety. And when we talk about, I'd love to see more art. Oh, interesting. Yeah. I think there's room for both, right?
I agree. And I think everyone has their own, their own journey into NFTs, right? Like you might start out with avatar projects, but then you might discover art and really fall in love with that. Or, like I personally, to me, like when I first got into this, I was screaming utility. Anything that has utility is more interesting than anything else. And in my personal portfolio, I probably now have more art than anything else, right? Or probably about the same. So I think there's a diversification component to it that plays into it. Well, I really appreciate you taking time to speak with us.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on. It was really fun to chat with you.
We're definitely gonna keep an eye out on Lucas's work, and hopefully he could tag us and give us a sneak peek of next time he goes live, so we can let our audience know.
Definitely. I'll keep you all posted.
Go get some rest, Lucas. I know you had a great week. Congratulations on launching that. And everybody go follow Lucas on social. Reach out to him in the Discord group. He's and I'm going to make an assumption. Lucas seems like a pretty nice guy, and I think that if you're an artist starting out or looking for more guidance, it seems like Lucas won't turn you down and be able to give a few pointers and conversations. And I think that's kind of how we continue to keep, this whole new digital world growing. Thanks again, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, pleasure. My pleasure. Absolutely. Thanks so much.
We'll see you again soon. Thanks, Lucas. Great having Lucas on the show. Wow. And I just love from the perspective of here's an artist take where some of the things he talked about, I would have never thought about, right? Like here I am building my custom home, or maybe I'm building, a meditation studio or something that's really meaningful to me. Or maybe I want to express a story, maybe hiring a generative artist to help me come up with that story and using both art and technology as a way to express that. That's something that I think is going to continue to happen or maybe start happening. I don't know if it is or not. We really appreciate you guys tuning in. For those of you who are new to our show, don't forget to check out the Goat Vault. Once again, for all of you who are not familiar with the Goat Vault is our way of bringing more and more people into the NFT world. Rules are pretty simple. All you need to do is subscribe to our show. Once we get to 5,000 subscribers on YouTube, we are going to open up the Goat Vault and give away free NFTs. Currently, those NFTs are valued at over $65,000. Who knows what they're going to be valued at by the time we open it up? But we're going to continue. We're going to continue to add more and more NFTs. maybe some new artwork into the world, into the Goat Vault, so we could give it out to our audience. I had a great Friday evening with you guys. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you all again next week. Thanks all.